Hello and welcome to Political Paradigm. I'm Terry Ikumi. For the next 1 hour, we'll be having a conversation on a number of issues relating to the state of the nation, beginning with the Supreme Court ruling on local government autonomy. It's been broadly commended and celebrated, but listening to the Attorney General of the Federation who took the matter to court while speaking to the National Assembly Committees on Constitution Amendment, he urged them to amend the Constitution to further strengthen the local governments. This is suggestive that it's not yet uhuru, as they say. Some questions will still need to be answered, like what happens to governance at the local government level if we again encounter the days of zero allocation? What changes with regard to control of state governors, since the state assemblies will still make laws for the local government? Recall that the same state assemblies had rejected local government autonomy, prompting former President Buhari to issue that executive order. Well, let's get some answers now from a man who's been a deputy governor and has been in the Senate since 2007. My guest is Senator Abaribe. In my recorded interview with him, he also raised concerns about the Southeast exclusion from the appointment of the president, contrary to the views of the Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma, who says the Southeast is satisfied with the president. Distinguished, welcome to Political Paradigm.
Yeah, thank you. That is my pleasure.
I think I'd like to begin with the local government issue. It's good to catch you at a time like this, considering the National Assembly stance on this issue of local government autonomy. And now the Supreme Court has ruled. And that, yes, everyone seems to be ecstatic, but I'd like to get your opinion on it, general opinion on what you think this means for democracy and development in the country.
As much as people are ecstatic, and I think we can commend the Attorney General and the President for trying to, don't forget also that President Buhari at the time even issued an executive order. I think the lacuna there is the local government elections are done by the state independent electoral commissions. Now, our experience in Nigeria has always been that the party in power in any state always delivers always have delivered to it, let me just put it that way, by the state electoral commissions. 100% of their party in every local government. And of course, we know that it's an anomaly. There's just absolutely no way where in an election, even where the national elections show a disparity in a state, when you come to the local government elections, everybody is announced. So as much as we have gotten to this point, we have to go to the next point. And the next point is to be able to tinker with the way the state electoral commissions are set up so that they can have the necessary independence that they can use to ensure that at this grassroots level, votes really count. Otherwise, we will simply have a mirage in our hands, a supposed independence, but in actual fact, you will not have an independent local government. So I think it's still a process that is ongoing, and I think that we can say that so far so good, but a lot of work needs to be done.
So we've always clamored for a process that allows development at the grassroots level. Yes, the concerns of who gets in there and how, because of the State Electoral Commission, so that would largely be controlled by the government, does exist. But with the law that we have now, with this law that we have and the Supreme Court ruling, how effective do you think that governance will be at a local government level, pending when the adjustments are made to the law to perhaps scrap state electoral commissions?
The point really, like I said, we have seen local governments elections done and people at this, and people supposedly elected at that local level. But what has been the practical reality? Because I want us to deal with the reality. I'm not moved by all the hoopla around it. The reality is that those people at those levels, because their laws, from the way they act, are made by the state assemblies, it circumscribes them and makes it impossible for them to act. For example, a state law says that by the resolution of the State House of Assembly, you can remove the local government chairman. Now, compare it with the National Assembly and the state assemblies. By resolution of the National Assembly, you can't remove a state governor, but that is what is in most of the laws of the states. So there still has to be a lot of, and then the point really is this. An independent-minded local government chairman who decides to do what he wants to do, even against the express provision, instruction of a governor of a state, he can be removed based on a state law. And I've seen the state laws.
But the law
they're all like that.
But the law doesn't make provision for caretaker committees, does it?
No, that is not the issue. The issue now is, okay, there's no provision for caretaker, which means that every state will have to conduct elections and then have elected local government chairmen. So where does that bring you to? It now brings you to state electoral commissions all conducting elections. And like the practice we have seen, the reality on ground has been that every party in power in a state wins every election in all the local governments. It's not democracy. That's something else. So no matter the, I will say, the approval that a lot of people are now saying, oh, they have done well, this and that, there are still some practical steps that we must have to. The good thing about what I'm saying concerning the local government is that now maybe a better quality of persons will now vie for local government elections. People can come in themselves, people can come independently, because it will now be seen not as an appendage, but then to make that practical, we must go another step forward. And that step forward is to look at how the state houses of assembly make their laws, look at how the state electoral commissions conduct elections, and also go ahead to see the relationships between the different state governments and the local governments.
I recall that this Constitution Amendment retreats of the National Assembly Committees on Constitution Review talked about legitimizing or perhaps strengthening the existence of local governments and ensuring the uniformity of their tenure. How will these states receive that?
Under the Constitution, the state houses of assembly also have to make laws for the local governments. And most of them made laws for a 3-year tenure. Some made laws for even a 2-year tenure. So what would uniformity mean? Well, originally, my own thought was that in a federal system, we should have a 2-tier system. What we have, this mishmash of 2-tier in one aspect, 3-tier in another, it never happens in any federal system. We should have had a 2-tier system in which states are the last level. So you have federal government and state. Each state regulates its own matter, decides how many local governments they have, determines what it's going to do, and so forth. But we have to deal with the Constitution as we have it today. And the Constitution now states that there are 3 levels. And so, those aspects of the Constitution that says state electoral commissions must be set up and they must conduct elections for local government, state assemblies must determine make laws for the local government.
Should be abolished?
So, I don't know. That's a conversation that we are still having.
How do you think that the excesses of local government administration can be checked with the law as it is now?
The point is to make good law and ensure that there is a penalty for infraction. The real problem in all this, going back, going forth, is that there is no penalty. If there were penalties, even the state governors will not act the way some of them are acting. And then it's the same thing, for everyone that is elected, because people can get away with anything. So they just go ahead and do it. So it is more like a set business than really the law, because we have seen the laws are there.
Yes.
If we follow the law, things are going to be all right. But everyone stretches the law to the limit. I mean, the reason why all this hoopla about local government is not that there's an aspect of the Constitution that says that funds coming from the federal government as part of the allocation to state should go to a joint state and local government account, where the state will now bring in 10% of their own internally generated revenue and then move the monies to the states. But rather than let that happen, we now had the situation, the anomalous situation, where the joint local government account was now used by state governments, and now we had this further anomalous situation where the joint state and local government was presided over by an appointee of the governor, most of the time the local government chairman. So you have an appointee presiding over a meeting of elected people and determining for them how much they are going to take, where they are going to take, and how they are going to use the funding for their local government. So you could always see that at all times, it's us, the operators of the Constitution, that subvert the same Constitution.
Let me get your thoughts on this, whether there's a conflict or otherwise. We've just talked about funding, which will come directly from the federal government straight to the local government based on the Supreme Court ruling. And then there's the issue of state houses of assembly prescribing the tenure of this local government administration. In instances where the state assembly removes a local government chairman, and the governor perhaps puts in a caretaker committee or doesn't, just before the time when the next election takes place, will the federal government withhold the allocation to that local government?
Well, I think with what the Supreme Court has ruled, the law will now be that if you put a caretaker, since it's illegal now, no funds will be released to that particular local government. So I think that matter will now be moot.
But how does that affect governance at the local government level?
Well, I guess that it's also not in the interest of a governor to do that, because it may also affect that same government in an election. Because if you make it impossible for local government staff to be paid since their monies are not coming, for those responsibilities for local government, the markets, the refuse collection, and all those things are not done, you end up also hurting yourself. So I think that maybe this will check the excesses of all those who want to subvert the Constitution.
Yeah, I know that you're very particular about the security situation in the Southeast. You recently met with the Attorney General, some senators, and I also know that governors also did same to secure the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. And the reason is that his release could bring some sort of peace to the Southeast. I don't know if there's been an outcome because the Attorney General is supposed to send a report to the President. I don't know if you have a feedback from that. I
think we don't have a feedback that we can share with the public because it's an ongoing conversation between the leaders of the Southeast and the federal government. The essential thing that the Southeast leaders at all levels, and both the clergy, the politicians, the traditional and all that, everybody knows at this moment that a legitimate concern or a legitimate agitation by those who are seeking for their rights within the country of Nigeria has been hijacked by those criminals and all those type of undesirables. And all that they have done is to impose mayhem on the Southeast. And at any point that you engage with any of those elements, all that they will tell you that, oh, because they are holding him, that is Mazi Nnamdi Kanu himself. And despite the fact that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu himself has said, I never authorized the sit-at-home, it should stop, nobody should kill anybody from the Southeast, yet this continues to go on. So we now know that the criminals are, hinging their peg on his incarceration to continue to perpetrate all this mayhem on the Southeast. And so what we feel really, and what everybody feels, is that if we have a political solution in which we are able to convince the federal government of the need, since everybody wants peace within this country, and if one part of the country is bleeding, every other part is also bleeding. There's the necessity so that you remove that rug from under their feet, which they are using. And so anyone who now continues to, murder people, do all manners of things, and then you now know that that's nothing but, they are no longer going to use the flag of an agitation to cover it. That's why we are all very involved in it.
But is Mazi, I like to think that you've also spoken with Mazi Nnamdi Kanu on this. Is he in on what you're trying to propose to the federal government?
Well, him and his lawyers and everybody also, we briefed them before we go, so they are very well aware of our efforts.
One thing you've also talked about is the possibility of this mayhem continuing even after his release if the federal government obliges with the political solution that you've proposed, especially because he's spoken on several occasions to say that that is not what he stands for in the Southeast, and the people have continued to listen to Simon Ekpa instead. So what's the guarantee that when he is released, there's going to be some sort of peace, that the people will now listen to him, even though you've said that if the mayhem continues, the rug's been pulled from under their feet, and then the federal government can know that this is just pure perpetrators of evil, so to speak?
Well, the point really is this. If you have a wound, you stitch it, put medication. Is that not so?
Absolutely.
Fine. So we need to stitch the wound. And how do you stitch it? To stitch that wound, you have to remove that cut. And that cut is what they claim is his incarceration. Simon Ekpa himself, as far as I'm concerned, you could also see he has also pegged it on Nnamdi Kanu. So if Nnamdi Kanu is released, then he cannot make that argument anymore. You understand? So I think that we should focus on the most important thing,
Yes.
which is to
But
try our best to get the government to see with the leaders of the Southeast and what we think. What somebody who lives in Finland and just continues to talk from there says is not the feeling of the people of the Southeast.
And you're optimistic that those governments will listen, because the previous government did not take up this, did not accept the political solution.
The point is, what will a government do? A government that wants to bring peace will always listen to its citizens. And we are citizens of the country. We are leaders in that part of the country, and all of us have come together. We do not see the possibility that the government will reject outrightly. We think that the government will listen to the leaders of the Southeast. And don't forget that these leaders cut across all parties, cut across all spheres of people, cut across the traditional institutions and all that, and including members of the cabinet of Mr. President himself. So if all of us are on one page, I think that it's axiomatic that
Absolutely.
they will have a positive review of what you're asking for.
One thing is clear. There's almost a knowledge of what the security situation or the cause of the insecurity in the Southeast is. I don't know if, as a federal lawmaker, with your experience and conversations on security you've had, that Parliament is aware of the cause of insecurity or the persistent insecurity in the country in general, let's say excluding the Southeast.
Yes, the Parliament has, over the years, taken proactive measures. The Parliament has engaged with the security chiefs. The Parliament has always engaged with the government. The Parliament has also given its recommendations. The Parliament has had rallies. We have had security retreats. We have had there's absolutely so many tomes, volumes of reports that we have, which we submitted to government. And we have also continued to engage at all times. So we know that there are all these type of things, the question of what's going on in the Sahel region, question of what is happening everywhere. But we think that with a strong military, which we think Nigeria has, with the willpower of the president, which we think President Tinubu has, that the sky should be our limit. Nothing should stop us from dealing with this problem. We know that there is an an intermeshing of religious, ethnic, tribal, and all manners of things included there. But then, one thing I've always known is that everybody knows who is clear-eyed and straightforward about what needs to be done, and that should just be followed.
Now that you bring up religious and tribal mentions, as you put them, it takes me to the bill, the open grazing bill, the ban on open grazing bill, which has still second reading in the Senate. And you would know better, I'd like to think, because it's in place in Abia State. So how effective has that been? And how do you think that tribal or religious sentiments could affect the passage of this bill? And how will it be received by the herders specifically?
What baffles some of us, really, is that we see solutions, and then we pretend that we don't see that solution. The matter is very clear. There's nowhere in the world where people are left to roam everywhere. Nowhere in the world. The best cattle-producing countries in the world are done through ranching. The North, the landmass of the North, has more than enough land for ranching. And that, even Awolowo, may his soul rest in peace, set up ranches when he was a premier. So this is not rocket science.
It seems like rocket science to the northern governors.
No, it's not. You see, the point really is, when you now engage them outside of the potencies of power, they tell you the truth. And so it behooves on the president and his cabinet and those who are involved to deal with this issue. Don't forget that the question of banditry, that the Sultan of Sokoto himself, at one time, under the when Buhari was president, said that 90% of all this banditry coming from this way, we are from the same Fulanis. He said it. It wasn't me that said it. So it's not like we don't know. You understand? Now, there is no earthly reason why somebody should come to Abia State and let his cattle roam in our farms as far south as Abia. In fact, last week, some youths from my own local government, Obingwa, in Abia State, my own local government, from a place called Abaribe, they sent SOS to me that there were these herders with their, just killing, wiping out their farms, their crops, so far south. So there is nowhere in the world that is done. And the sooner we get to grips with that, the better for everybody. Now, Malaysia is even bringing some type of alfalfa grass that can now thrive in semi-arid regions. So it's not grass. It's just people roaming around who want to, I will say, colonize a place, now take over people's lands. And until we are, I will say, truthful to each other, there's no way we can go beyond this mouthing whether it can be done or not. It was unfortunate that the Buhari government was the government that openly supported people who are not Nigerians. And, you know, there was a funny part of our debate on the floor on that same ranching bill. When we said, okay, so everybody will go back to their states of origin. And some people got up and said, no, you cannot let, these people don't have a state of origin. If anybody don't have a state of origin in Nigeria, he's not a Nigerian. And that's what we have been saying all along. So, part of, I will say, good relations is that I will respect your rights and you will respect my rights as a citizen. There are some kind of arguments that are made which we find utterly ridiculous. So when somebody makes an argument and says that an Igbo spare parts dealer can operate anywhere in the country, of course, the Igbo spare part dealer buys his goods, rents a shop, stays in his shop, and does his business, you buy and sell. The Igbo spare part dealer does not carry an AK-47 to kill someone. So then somebody else is going around with his cattle, destroys your farm, kills you and your children and their wife and family, and then you tell me that, no, he's free to do that. How can those two things be even compared?
I'm curious to ask you this question.
Yeah.
With what you say, it's almost an assertion. And as illegal as it is, are you aware of any prosecutions in this regard?
That is the point. And that is why most people are so bothered. Some people have been arrested. They are set free. People have been stopped from going somewhere. Why? Because At the end of the day, you go back to the security agencies, and the security agencies will tell you that their hands are tied. When some women came to me in my local government, all that we said, oh, please go to the DPO, because I cannot take laws into my hand. It is the security agents that are supposed to do it. And most states have passed those laws, but a state does not have its own security agency, because they have to refer back to both the Nigerian police, Nigerian military, Nigerian Navy, Nigerian Air Force. So at the end of the day, there must be a clear-eyed determination by the government in this country that the killing of Nigerians must stop, that the taking over of lands of Nigerians must stop, that the destruction of properties, farms and all that must stop, unless that is done. And how do you do it? That is why this question of saying, let everyone go back to where is their state of origin, establish ranches there. Look, there was a particular time that Governor Ganduje, who is now the chairman of APC, said at the time that there were all this debate about ranches, that Kano State alone has more than enough land for all the cow in Nigeria. He said so. And nobody has said, oh no, there are more cows in Botswana than in Nigeria. You know that. And the size of Botswana is the size of 2 states in the southeast. It's just a question of will. It's a question of our doing the right thing in the 21st century. There's no way anybody can assume that the way we lived in the 19th century is the way we're going to live today. It's just not going to be possible. We will always be having these conflicts if it's not dealt expeditiously.
So where does the president's proposed new ministry, livestock, come in? Do you think it's going to address food insecurity, or perhaps this farmers' heritage clash?
I have no idea about what the dimensions and the basin, because as much as it has been proposed, just an executive proposal, we have not seen any documentation. None of us in the National Assembly, if he has come, I haven't seen it yet, to say these are the things that the livestock ministry will do. These are their terms of reference. These are the areas that it will have to deal with. So until I see that, I'm not at liberty to comment. It is the prerogative of the president to create
a ministry.
What the Constitution says is that you must have at least one minister from a state. And of course, that is why we also, some of us from the Southeast, we say that these are the things that also are bringing up all this sense of alienation from the people of the Southeast. So you have, at the moment now, 50 ministries. Assuming you share it equally, or you do it equally, you probably is not going to have the type of anomaly we have, that out of 50 ministries, the Southeast has only 5, 1 per state. Yet, the Southwest has about 10, the other ones have about 9, and so forth. And so, the question has always been, this ethnicization of different things, does it augur well for the country? One of the essential things in dealing with people is always to try to be fair. And when people perceive that you're not fair, you cannot engender a sense of support from them. And so we think that as we look at all this, that as the president is going to revamp his cabinet, as we are hearing by rumors, I'm not very sure, that maybe there will be a juggling to make things fairer for everybody.
But when you talk about fairness, I know that under the Buhari administration, the Southeast complained about this, and this is the same thing.
I do not think so. Let me tell you what happened. It started from the Obasanjo administration. The Obasanjo administration had 37 ministers, 36 states, one each, and then went further to have one minister per zone. That's what happens to take care of zonal, I would say, interests. And that was maintained by all the presidents until President Buhari, President Tinubu now increased the number to 49. And from increasing it to 49, has now increased it to 50. So this is the first time that he has gone beyond.
I was asking about
one.
Fairness, comparing the fairness.
The question of fairness, let me just... well, the point about fairness is that, except for the President Obasanjo,
good luck,
Yaradua, and Jonathan, from President Buhari, what we have seen has been an ethnicization of the powers of the federal government. And of course, Buhari took it one step further. And what we have seen with the Tinubu government is also another step further. It's not good for the unity of the country. If you now say that whenever anybody that comes from any state, any place comes into office, the first thing he will do is to appropriate everything to his area. So what are you telling the rest of the people? You know, statecraft is a very careful balancing act which you must try as much as possible to do. Well, the point is that the decision on what to do lies with the president.
Very well, then. I think another concern, which I think I've heard some members of parliament mouth, is the increase in the cost of governance at a time like this when, you know, Parliament itself is calling for the implementation of the Orosanye report. And that's a call that's been echoed by even civil society organizations. They're in the new ministry. Is it a concern for you?
Yes, it is. In fact, it's not just for this. It's for the whole importances of government. You know, one of the very, very difficult things that happens when you're in the public eye is that even when you say this is not right, everyone that wants to criticize you will just take it from an ethnic standpoint, or maybe you're supporting A or supporting B. You understand? And if you quote anybody, they will say, oh, you're quoting him because you like him. So I will take it this way. Donyo Okupe made some allusions to this. First, to say, maybe we're not understanding that we're on the Titanic. And while the ship is sinking at the bottom, we're still at the top floor, at the ballroom, dancing. And that was what happened. And before they knew it, the ship sank and everyone, except a few people, were left. I think it was Donyi that first said it. Then secondly, Peter Obi also mentioned something like that by saying, if you're in a hole, stop digging. We're a poor country. We are totally indebted everywhere. We are scrambling for more loans and all that. We can't live ostentatiously. And everyone knows that. Yet, we seem not to even look at that. And so we are doing this, we are doing that, we are buying a plane, we are giving cars to people, we are creating more things. I mean, any anybody who, let's say you're a businessman, you want to go and borrow from a bank, and you drive to a bank in a Rolls Royce, what do you think the bank manager will do? You're driving a Rolls Royce when you don't have enough money to fuel it. Why do you have to drive a Rolls Royce? You understand? And I think that that's exactly what is going on now. So maybe we need to take a step backwards and ask ourselves several things. Is the way we are living the right way? What is going on today? Is that the best way for us? The unfortunate thing that we have today in Nigeria is that even well-intentioned criticisms that are meant to guide us aright, that are meant to take our ship away from the rock that is in front of us, are dismissed as partisan politics. And then, that is very disheartening.
Listen, that's a concern for some, drawing from what you've said. And I also know that the Senate debated the rise in food costs in the country. And if you see the rise in cost of living in the country, people now begin to turn to Kenya to say, is Nigeria, as the political class, as the federal government, not learning anything from what's happening in Kenya?
Well, the unfortunate thing is that we seem not to learn from history. It's not just that it happened. It happened here under NSAS, and it can happen again. And we continue to say it. But those of us who say it are saying, don't mind them, is opposition. What do you expect them to say? But I'm also using this opportunity to plead with the federal government. We need to reverse the way we are going. We just seem to act as if there is no problem. Whereas, we can walk on the street. Everyone is suffering in a way or the other. And those of us who have access to our people, because our people have access to us, we see it on a daily basis. The pressures are mounting, and it will explode one day. There's absolutely no way you can continue to keep a people down. And the best way is for the government to listen to the people.
As we look towards some of these adjustments that need to be made to positively affect lives, there are concerns regarding the constitutional amendment process that is ongoing in National Assembly now, and questions around how important some of these amendments are. I'd like to start off with the state creation bills that are before the National Assembly. I'd like to get your thoughts specifically if the timing for state creation at this point is pertinent enough.
Well, the point really is this. What do the people want? Part of what those of us, some of us who are supposed to be in privileged position, is what do the people really want? Do they want? If they want more states, then we should find a way of giving it to them. If it is not feasible at this time, then you should also come out and say, for this reason, A, B, C, D.
Does the creation of new states stretch the resources of the country?
Obviously, it's going to stretch the resources, but then management of your resources is the problem. I don't think, let's just put it. Do we really need everyone? Let me just put it, that is in the national and state and all that. Do we really need all these vehicles? Ask yourself, do we need new houses, this, that? Do we need new jets that we are buying? Do we need a yacht? Do we, we just have to sit out and ask ourselves. I continue to watch the Kenya situation and look at what the president did. Seeing the way his own people have said, no, we don't want all this. So he on his own, scrapped all these things. And even is in the process of rejigging and, revamping his cabinet. What I'm saying is this. The Constitution of Nigeria does not recognize the office of the wife of the president. It's not in the Constitution, or office of the wife of governor. Yet, we made appropriation for it, which is illegal. We're not supposed to make appropriation for an office that does not exist. So, we do these things, and we just do them with some casual business.
The thing is, hearing this from a federal lawmaker, whose responsibility it is to check these excesses, would be quite concerning for some persons.
Precisely.
Is the National Assembly handicapped in this?
Well, the point really is that National Assembly operates by votes. And so I can make my own contribution and say, this is unnecessary. And if people vote and say that's what they want, you understand, it passes. So at the end of the day, that's why I say that it's a collective responsibility for all of us. As a president, should you bring an appropriation for an office which the Constitution does not recognize? You start from there before you now come to say whether the National Assembly approved or didn't approve. You may not get what you want in a democracy because, like they say, the minority will have their say, but the majority will have their way.
Distinguished, as we wind down this conversation, I'd like us to sit with constitution amendments on two specific issues, one of which is the gender bills that's now being reintroduced. It failed in the previous assembly, and considering that Nigeria ranks bottom of countries when it comes to women participation in politics, what do you foresee happening with regards to improving the political representation of women in parliament specifically?
We have been engaging with people. Incidentally, I'm one of those that advise the female gender on the ways to go about, because I have always supported them. In fact, I'm one of those they call he for she. What has always happened is that at every time that these matters come, maybe out of the fact that it's not well explained to people, there's always this ethnic, religious sentiment that comes in. In fact, in the last assembly, we got a professor from Bayero University who gave us the perspective from the Islamic point of view, because we have had most of the I will say pushback from the religious aspect. And he explained it very constantly, and we brought it in, but it was late. So we think that we should also from now engage with all our brothers, and also traditional expectations about women. And this one cuts across the whole country, from the south all the way to the north. The traditional expectation is not to see women as equal partners in the Nigerian project. And we are going to continue to, get more people. And I will seriously pray that these efforts will yield fruit, and we will have the gender bills passed. Yes, because it's very necessary. We cannot have more than 50%.
Especially with a president that seems like he would sign.
50% of our population underrepresented. That is
very well. There's something else, and it's the legal back and forth in Rivers State. it's not restricted to River State. We've seen this play out in several other states in the country. And I'm wondering, what sort of constitutional amendments should we pursue such that this doesn't happen again?
Let people follow the law. At the moment, I think these matters are sub judice, so I may not have to say much. But the point really is that the laws are there. The Supreme Court has also made pronouncements. The appeal courts have made pronouncements. Why not follow it? So you see people all dancing around the issue. I think that's where the real problem lies, that we see what is right and refuse to do what is right. You understand? The law is clear, very clear, and the Supreme Court has also made it very clear. If you have decided that you're no longer a member of your party, you understand, if somebody goes to court against you and says that you're no longer a member of parliament, the law is clear.
You lose your seat.
You lose your seat because the courts will interpret it that way. So if you now say, oh no, I haven't really, but let me be in court and all that, then eventually the courts will have to rule on it. So I really don't see that much problem coming from there once we have fidelity to the stipulations in the law of the land. And not just in that, in so many other things concerning us as a nation. What we see is that some of our laws are observed in the breach by those who ought to know better. And of course, some people do it to gain some advantage. Some people do it to confer advantages to their group or whatever. Right. But as far as I know, whatever goes round comes around. And that thing that you may be doing to someone today, thinking that it will not, may eventually come back to you or to somebody you know and all that. And that's why the rule has always been do the right thing always. Once you do the right thing, then you can go home with your conscience very, very clear.
Senator Abaribe, I'd like to thank you very much for your time on Political Paradigm.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry.
Well, that's all the time we have on Political Paradigm today. We've been speaking with Senator Abaribe. I'd like to thank you for your time. Remember to catch this episode and others by simply searching Political Paradigm on YouTube or go to channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.